So let's. So good morning, everyone, and welcome to the California Association Healthcare Leaders and San Diego Organization's Healthcare Leaders Board of Governors exam preparation series. So we are happy that you are here with us today, and you being here with us today just shows your commitment to lifelong learning and to your commitment to your fellow journey. So kudos to that, and hopefully you'll hang tight with us for the whole month, and we will be here to help you prepare for your journey. So before we will delve into the main topic of today's session, what do you expect for today is we will be giving you some overview on how to apply for a fellow, some resources that you need to, to prepare for the exam, and some, examples of people who attended our session who made it and passed, and some tips on how to take the exam properly. So, and after that, we will be delving into the main topic, which is the healthcare body of knowledge question and answer. Next slide, please. Before we will start, I would like to introduce to you the different members of advancement committee members, both from California, CAHL and San Diego, who made this effort possible. So I would like to start with myself. I am Michael DeCoco. I am the chair for the member advancement for California Association Healthcare Leaders, and I've been with CAHL for 7 years, and I am a fellow. And in a daytime, my job is I'm the director for ancillary services at Seton Medical Center. Tui?
Thank you, Michael. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. And it is great to see you all. Thank you so much for being here on the Saturday morning. My name is Tui Do. I am the co-chair of the CAHL Member Advancement Committee here. And my daytime job, I am one of the California program managers at a nonprofit called Southeast Asia Resource Action Center. And I will pass it over to Rick.
Morning. Happy Saturday, everyone. My name is Rick Narad. I'm normally a professor of health services administration at Cal State Chico, teaching classes on health policy and health law for the most part. And I was one of the original board members for Cal and served on that for a bunch of years, and then continued my service by serving on this committee. So welcome, everyone. Sachin?
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sachin Gangupantala. I am a committee member with the Advancement Committee for the last 3 years or so, working with this awesome team. I'm also a member, have been a chair of the CAHL Communications Committee for a few years, and been a part of CAHL for 6 years. I am a founder and director of operations for a medical practice in Modesto, focusing on diabetes and obesity. Thank you for coming on today.
And the last one from CAHL is Nora Powers, but she's not able to join us today, but she will be here next week. And Nora is one of our committee member, and she's one of the founder for this review class session with Rick. So next slide, I would like to welcome our partners from the San Diego Organization of Healthcare Leaders.
Yes, Mary Parra here. Florencia is traveling, so I'm holding down the fort for the San Diego chapter this morning. Just welcome everybody, and just so excited that you're able to join us for this study group to pass your Board of Governors exam. Thank you.
Next slide, please. Okay, I think it's time to call on Tui again to discuss some overviews on the FACHE journey, or some tips and recommendations. So Tui, it's your turn.
Awesome. Thank you, Michael. All right, so how this process starts, or the exam journey is, that is the website that you can go to and apply online. Starting with the profile, you can verify whether or not you have the prerequisites and all the information that's filled out. And so when you're ready, that is the link. And I think the link is active. So after this session, we'll send you all of these slide decks so that way you can access it and check them out. Next slide, please. And so when you're applying, there are waiver opportunities. So ACHE has their own waiver, and you can save up to $225 once you apply. You submit your advancement application between now and June 30th. And if they approve of your application, you will be waived that amount for the Board of Governors exam. And the beauty of that is that if you are curious to see like what your baseline is and like how you can, what your performance, then you can always take the exam without needing to study. And like with this opportunity, it can save you that sort of headache because the exam can, can be investing. So this is a good way for us to gauge and do a little temp check before actually diving in and taking it. But I am very hopeful that since you are all here, you're prepared, then this can just make it that smooth of a transition. Next slide, please. And so here are some of the requirements and eligibility points. And if you want to advance, I think they will pop up. First is to have a membership tenure requirement, which is 1 year with ACHE as a faculty associate or international associate. I love the fact that even though we are in the California chapter, Northern, and in San Diego, there is a diverse group of people here, of professionals who want to advance your careers and develop your skills. So this is one of those requirement points. Another is to have a master's or another form of a post-baccalaureate degree, as well as currently being an executive healthcare management position. And that includes about a minimum of 5 years with this type of experience in healthcare management. For more details, we've provided a link for you that shows a matrix on what that entails, because it's very diverse and it's also unique to your experience. So it's not just like it has to be, in a hospital or anything of that status, but it can be in various forms and ways. And so that matrix helps break it down and help clarify. And lastly is the volunteer aspect of it. You are required to have 4 volunteering activities within a 3-year time frame before you submit the application. And 2 of those types of activities can be community or civic, and the other 2 can be healthcare related. And if anyone on the committees would like to share more details of what a community or civic or healthcare related activities, you're more than welcome to. I just don't have.
Well, let me just add a couple of more comments here.
Yeah.
So for the volunteer activity, there are several opportunities that you can consider, even participating in your own community within wherever you are. I think Nora usually gives an example of being part of the homeowners association, just being a volunteer to help the community there, or anything related to civic organizations is perfectly valid. With respect to the healthcare volunteer activities, if you are part of CAHL volunteering in any aspect, perfect. If not, even if you're part of a health fair, one-time activity, that's also agreeable. You have to remember that ACHE is doing its best to encourage as many of the members, eligible members, possible to pursue this fellowship, because board certification is the best kind of accomplishment you can show. So then they're not keeping a high bar in terms of what is considered a volunteer activity. So if you have any questions, ACHE is more than happy. What I've seen over the years is they've been very flexible about recognizing the volunteer activities and not a showstopper to get you qualified. With regards to the healthcare management experience, they do require 5 years of leadership, and the matrix is definitely a great way to kind of see what aspects of the management experience they are requiring. The one thing you have to remember is that doesn't have to be in your current job. It's an aggregate 5 years of health experience in your career. So if you have moved into a different company that doesn't give you a leadership role at this point, it should still be okay if you can show your previous positions that actually have any of those leadership experiences. So use the matrix that we have provided here. That's an ACHE tool that helps you kind of document that. As part of the references, our structured interviews that we're going to talk about next, we can help go through that as well with you one-on-one. So we can actually help you that, and so you can submit that to ACHE.
Great. Thank you so much, Sachin, for those clarifying points. Next slide, please. So this is a snapshot of what the matrix looks like. And in your own time, you can fill in and check mark any of those columns and rows to see what your progress and what your status is. Next slide.
I clicked on the link here. Hold on.
Okay. And it should be good. Yeah, it's still active. Thank goodness. So yeah, if you download that, then you can fill it in. I think it is one of those PDFs that you can fill out without needing to, export it. And continuing with that, and being able to sit for the exam, there is a minimum of 36 hours of healthcare management CE units or credits prior to the 3-year period. And so if anyone on our team would like to further explain that, these are the general outlines though, where 12 must be ACHE face-to-face education credits, remaining can be qualified education credits. And the example of that is what Sachin described.
Let me add a comment here. So for those who are not familiar with these, ACHE basically has 2 types of educational events. The ones that they have used for our requirement here for face-to-face credits, each event usually has the description saying eligible for 1.5 face-to-face credits, eligible for 1.5 qualified education credits, etc. ACHE has a higher bar in requirements in terms of chapters offering these face-to-face credits. So that's why it's important for you to look at the chapter's events, as like we're going to talk about 2 events, that one from CAHL and one from our partner Southern California is offering, and that's a good example to kind of see how you can identify what credits you're going to get. Face-to-face credits are assigned or given by ACHE when you participate in it. So the registration is a 2-step process. They also require you to be on in the event, either in person or virtual, at least for, I don't know, 85% of the time or something like that. So you can't just keep it on and walk away. So they do record your participation. Qualified education credits are self-reported. You may be able to, get it going on the side and walk away, but they trust you to be honest about reporting those credits. But that's why it's important for you to remember which ones you are registering. And if you're planning to appear for the exam, plan ahead in terms of collecting those 12 credits. The best part is that even if you're associated or in California, you can accrue these face-to-face credits from any chapter. So several chapters are still offering virtual face-to-face credits. So keep an eye out for those. Texas and Massachusetts and New York have, they're large chapters, so they have multiple events going on. We have a few in California as well, but depending on the timing of when you want to apply for your exam, just plan out so you actually accrue those 12 credits and the remaining qualified education credits.
Thank you, Sachin. And as he explained earlier about the volunteering activities, this is to reiterate some more examples, but within that 3-year time frame. Next are a couple of references that that is needed. One reference can be of a structured interview from a current fellow. And like Sachin said, you can always ask one of the advancement committee members for a reference. And another reference can be from a senior level executive in your workplace or another current fellow. Next slide. So this one's a little bit on the a little bit denser, and for the sake of time, I'll just hit the high points on this. And so you'll need to complete and submit the online application with the required supplementary information that's listed below, such as a copy of your transcript or a job description, a resume, and then going back to that tool that'll help you organize and have that set up. Another is to receive an authorization letter and exam registration form from ACHE, and that'll be valid for about 2 years when you register and you pass the exam. You can take the exam as many times as needed during this 2-year time frame, and there is a 60-day waiting period if you need to try again. There is a new registration fee for each time you take the exam in order to pass it. And like I said earlier, the registration for the exam is needed, and you can always do the application fee to waive the $250. And you can take the exam within the 30 days of payment. And so before we send this out for the post event, I'll make that correction. It's actually April 1st instead of March 1st. So that is a written error. And then you will take the exam through Pearson. That's their website. So it's computer. And I don't know, Michael, if this year when you went to Congress, if there was like a paper exam that was available.
I don't know.
Okay, all right. So we can move on to the next slide. And so the exam will cover about 10 core knowledge areas. Today, we will go over healthcare, and in the next several sessions, we'll break these down into about 2, maybe 3 topics within the hour and a half that we have. And this breaks down how many questions. They will all be mixed. So to clarify, they will not have the exam to say like, oh, this will be the healthcare and 28 questions. So I think it's about 200 questions, and it'll be mixed up, right? Yeah. Okay.
One other comment I have, and then we may be covering that later on, but the score is an aggregate score. So it's not, you're not going to be graded as a pass in each of these areas. It's going to be an aggregate, whatever ACHE decides as the aggregate 60, 70%, whatever, just so you know. But obviously, the ones that have high weightage, like the first 4 domain areas, have a lot of questions. So you can start off preparing a lot more, spending more time on those, so you have a better chance of passing.
Thank you. Next slide. So I was mistaken. So there's going to be 230 questions, and only 200 are scored, and it's based on competence and not book learning. So I think what that means is that it's based through your experience, and that's why it's so important to have those years of just written down in that matrix versus just rote memory. It is assesses, right?
So I would like to add on that. So there are different levels of test questions: the knowledge, comprehension, application. So basically, what we're trying to to do is the knowledge. Knowledge is just remembering the facts, and the comprehension is understanding what's the meaning of the facts. So mostly the ACA fellow exam is more on application. So you still need to know the knowledge, the facts in order to apply to your to the exam. So that's why mostly the questions, as Tui said, it's all application, but you have to know the basic facts.
Thank you, Michael. Next slide. And these are some resources and links that you can check out at your own time. There's other various webinars and preparation resources that you can take a look in further. I do know that the healthcare organizing, like the 9th edition is one of like the big books. So Sachin in a little bit will discuss more of the study guide bundles. Next slide. Again, this is a continuation of other things that will be helpful to you. And so if you want to earn the face-to-face CEs, these are some of the opportunities that you can do so. Next
Just a
slide.
comment. I do know that ACHE courses, including these ones, are quite expensive. So if you have enough time before the exam and you're trying to earn your face-to-face credits, do keep an eye out for a lot of chapters. They usually have $30 or so on average. Some of these sessions available, which usually give 1.5 credits. So depending on how soon you're planning to take the exam, you can look at both options and pick what's relevant for you.
Those are good points. Thank you, Sachin. Next. And so this is one of the many events that are coming up. So the next event will be on April 18th, Tuesday. This is virtual and it's free. So it is the 2023 Learning from Leaders. And in the coming weeks, I'll be updating these slides. So you'll have other opportunities and other events to check out. And I will pass it over to Mary for any of the SOL events.
I'm back on. Yes, we have an event coming up this Tuesday, April 4th, and it's an inclusive leadership leveraging diversity as a strength. So I'm sure our SOL members have received the announcements for this upcoming event, and if you have any questions, just let me know, but I think it should be a great event, and diversity is definitely a hot topic these days.
So I did actually want to confirm with Mary, that's the question mark I had, but I believe this is a face-to-face credit. So usually when I see two-step registration, it does mean it's an ACHE approved face-to-face credit event.
Yeah, I'm sure I can verify that, but yeah, but it's dial in and enjoy. It should be a great program.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'll pass it over to you, Sachin.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to continue in terms of some of the things that you should think about when you're preparing for the exam. I got my fellow exam. I've done it in October, November of 21. And as we all know, we have our own full-time jobs. So we always have to be realistic in terms of how much time we want to set aside. I have had members in the past reach out who have tried to stretch this, who have also tried to do it within a month. It just depends on the time that you have. This is definitely not an easy exam in terms of the scope of, as you've seen, the 10 domain areas. And if you think about the day-to-day jobs that you have, we may or may not have. Most of the time, we never are handling all of the 10 areas. So that experience, the skills that you have, may be strong in 3 or 4 or 6 areas. So there's still areas that you need to read. And some of them actually may have to even maybe reading for the first time. For example, a lot of our members have challenges with the finance area because it's just not something that we do on a daily basis, or your role doesn't need you to focus on it. So what we have seen, personal experience as well as the committees, is 3 to 6 months is a is a very good window to set aside. There are multiple resources, as we have shared, which you can use to read on that. But that gives you, maybe on the weekends, you want to spend 2-3 hours on a weekend. That's probably a good way to think about. But having that, once you start looking at the scope of it, you will get a sense of how deep that is. And that's why, we want to make sure you're able to do that. Definitely, there's a link that ACHE provides to assess your competencies. A great way to kind of look at which of the areas you need to spend more time on, right? And there's always strategies that you can come up with that works with your availability, with your experience. So each member, it's different for each member. So we cannot just say, here's a cookie cutter approach to prepare for this exam. It's going to be so different for every person. And develop a plan of courses, reading and mentoring. As I mentioned, there are a few things that we're going to talk through all this presentation, whether it's ACHE resources, whether it's upcoming events. So one of the things I did when I was preparing was I looked at the biggest chapters in the country, which is Texas. I think New York has 2 or 3, Florida is big, and looked at their websites, looked at who has upcoming events. And if there are certain events that are of interest that are I'm weak at, I'm always going to bookmark or register ahead of time. Each of the chapters also have an option to register for their newsletters, which I did. So what happens is once every month, you will get a newsletter from them saying, hey, we are offering a face-to-face event or a qualified education event. So that gives me a kind of a reminder saying, okay, this is one area that I'm not good at. Let me sign up. And while I get a credit, I also get to have a good experienced person talking through that topic. Like governance is an interesting topic for me, and I had participated in a couple of sessions like that. So the tools that we provide from the committee point of view, we are sending you excellent resources, pre-recorded sessions. We are also going to give you access to our recordings from the previous sessions that we've held. So they'll probably see a lot of commonality, but still we try to introduce new set of questions in every session. So it's also a good resource for you to listen in and to brush up. And wherever, most chapters also offer 5-week sessions, 6-week sessions, just like we are doing. That's something that I also took a couple of years ago. I think Georgia, I signed up for Georgia's Board of Governors exam series just to get a sense of how they do it. And since I'm on this committee, it also helps me kind of see best practices. But for members who are preparing for the exam, it's another great resource. If you're short on time for reading books and accessing all the resources, think about participating in another session like this offered by other chapters. So there's a lot of options for you to prepare. But I just want to mention that don't rush through this exam. It's always good to get an experience with it. Even if you don't clear the exam, it's a great experience to know, yes, you do lose $250, but at the same time, you're getting a good experience in terms of how to prepare well for the next time. I'm not able to just keep an eye on the questions. If you do have questions, I'm happy to answer as we go along. So once you complete the application and ACHE approves it, they're going to send you a confirmation saying you have cleared all the requirements, and then they will send you a notification to go ahead and register with Pearson for the exam. And I think it's a 30-day window. I'm not sure, but I remember seeing that.
Yes,
Pearson
30
is one of the companies that offers a lot of these examinations. So the good news is they are all over the country, but within your zip code or whatever is nearest to you, it's best to kind of quickly go and check based on your zip code. Some are like, if you're in popular areas like San Diego or Bay Area, they may go off quickly, so you may have to drive a little farther along. So it's always good to get a sense of which location you want to take the exam and plan for the date accordingly. Let's see, submit the application. Yeah, so the scoring is immediate, and we talk about the exam timing, etc. But you will get a result right away, and it'll tell you how you scored in each of the 10 areas and also whether you passed or not. And then it takes a few weeks after that for ACHE to send you the confirmation and the certificate itself. So in terms of preparation, ACHE has always provided a lot of resources for exam preparation, but they also recommend the study set. This kind of covers pretty much all the areas that they have, the 10 areas. These are 4 excellent books that I have read myself for the preparation. And they do have multiple editions as well. Obviously, every 2 years or so, these books are being updated with the latest. If you were at the Congress event just last month, they usually have promotions on these, but just keep an eye out. Sometimes online, they do have, I think it's the HAP, the Health Administration Press that puts these books out. They do have certain times during the year when they actually have a sale going on. But definitely take a look at these books online. I don't know if they're available in Amazon, but usually if you are a member on ACHE, the price on ACHE is definitely cheaper than when you're buying in Amazon. Let's see here, next one. So they do have 2 bundles here. One was a set. The second one that we're showing here includes the flashcards that you see in the front here. It's a great tool. A lot of members actually found that beneficial, and it's just traditional. If you remember reading any of these flashcards in the past, preparing for an exam. I don't have one to show, but usually Nora is the one that has a set that I can show you an example. Basically, it has a definition of a particular term or a particular policy, and then the answer behind it. So it covers all the 10 areas. It's a great tool for you to kind of refresh on a particular domain once you have read through it. And they used to have, they probably still do. ACHE has an online access to these flashcards as well. Once you purchase the kit or the entire study bundle, using your account, ACHE account, you're actually able to go get an online version of the flashcards as well. All right, we do have a link here up on the top where you can actually buy the entire set. Awesome. So we are, as a committee, I think 10 plus years or even longer. I don't know the exact. I think maybe Rick, has it been more than 10 years?
I don't know. I'm really not sure how long we've been doing this. I think this is our 3rd or 4th year of doing it online, but we did it for a lot of years before that. So probably around 10. Definitely.
So we used to have in person, used to meet at, Sutter and other facilities that will give us, and just like this, how we're doing it, we used to meet in person, 15, 20 people. It was a great experience, but I'm glad to say that over the years, we've been able to successfully help a lot of our members achieve this credential. And we are always excited and pleased when we get testimonials like these. It kind of shows how the members have benefited from this program. And it's not just about the committee members trying to give you the best practices. A lot of members actually using over the 5 weeks have made connections just on this chat. And sometimes it's the same company focus and they end up connecting and do, meet up on occasion and also prepare together. That also is a great way. Hopefully this is facilitating that kind of study. But this is a classic example of what we always are looking forward to as a benefit. So Nikhil is actually part of CAHL board, and he is one of the newest one. I think a few months ago he became a new fellow. But we would love to have all of you kind of experience the same that Nikhil has experienced, including myself. I was part of the committee since 2020. Just like others who helped them out, but it also gave me motivation to kind of prepare alongside. And here's our wall of fame, which we look forward to having all of you and actually have multiple screens like this. But last year, I think we had, I want to say 20 or 25 of the members who achieved the fellow status. In fact, for 2021, our chapter was recognized for exceeding the goals that ACHE has set for us in terms of helping our members achieve this credential. So, you know, as soon as you get out the exam, you got your certificate in front of you, just take a selfie like we did. We would love to put you up here. We would also love to have you come on, give us a testimonial. We'll put you up on our website. We have a monthly newsletter where we would love to feature you. I want others to kind of learn from you what worked for you. So thanks again. And let's get on with the next part of our presentation.
So while we are, waiting for the next slides for the question and answers and the brain walk. So the next part is the, healthcare knowledge. It's a body of knowledge where it has 28 questions in the exam. So we are just waiting for Shashan to share us the slides. And I will be turning you over to Tui and Rick to bring to do the brain walk for each question. So go ahead, Tui and Rick.
Great. Thank
Okay,
you so much.
Go ahead.
Rick.
Okay, I'll go. Just quickly, what we do in the brain walk and you'll see this with each of our sessions, is we try to walk through the question in the way that you would when answering the test. So instead of just jumping in and give it, we're going to go through and do some analysis. And I will tell you, for the ones I'm answering, I did not look at them beforehand, so I may or may not get them right. It's been known to happen that I don't, but that's okay, because you don't need 100% to pass the test. But the idea is to give you the process of analyzing the questions. Back to you.
Thank you so much, Rick. Yeah, and fun fact, we just updated the questions this season, so they're mainly new. It'll be a great brain walk, maybe a jog. So these are some of the points that the healthcare portion will cover. It'll cover healthcare as well as medical terminology, some trends, as well as levels of healthcare along the continuum of care, and levels of services from a business standpoint, types of healthcare providers, ancillary services, and support services. Next slide. And continuing on with interdependency of integration within and the competition amongst healthcare sectors, the clinician roles and qualifying criteria, evidence-based management practices, the different staff and various functional perspectives in these organizations, the patient perspective and how that's different from the providers, and the relationships amongst the access, cost, quality, allocation, community, and accountability.
Before you go to the first question, I would like to remind everyone that if you have any questions or perspective in the questions that you will be seeing today, please feel free to drop them in the chat. We would like to invite you to bring to share your knowledge too. So
yes, thank you, Michael. All right, next slide. All right, so first question is improving profit for a provider service network that contracts with employers on a capitated basis, but pay providers on a fee-for-service basis, possible by, is it to increase the number of inpatient procedures, reduce per member per month rates to employers, increase payment rates to network hospitals, or reducing utilization services? And so I'll give about a moment or so. And everyone can, write in their responses like Michael said.
But let me walk through this one first before people start putting their answer in, because you really want to not jump into the first answer. when I look at this one, I'm trying to figure out what it is I'm answering first, and I'm going to read the question really carefully. As we said in law school, RTFQ, which was read the friendly question. I think that was the F. And so I'm going to do this one carefully. I'm going to look for things that may be fooling me, like, not, accept, things like that. So what am I looking at? Okay, improving profit. I'm looking for what's going to improve profit. So I've got a little bit of finance with healthcare. And I have to know what capitated is, and I have to know fee for service, and I have to know how they work. So I'm going to go through the 4 answers as if they were 4 true false questions, right? So I'm not going to look for the best answer yet. I'm going to try to eliminate ones. Okay, so improving profit for capitation. Okay, so we've got a set amount of money coming in, but we're paying out by volume. If we increase the number of inpatient, no, that's going to decrease our profit because we're paying more out with no more coming in. That's false. Reducing per member per month rates to employers. Well, no, if we're getting a lower amount coming in, then that's not going to improve our profits either. Increasing payment rates to hospitals. Again, that's money going out. It's not going to increase our profit. It's the opposite. Okay, reducing utilization. Okay, so I've got a set amount coming in. That's the capitation. I'm paying fee for service. That's volume. If I can reduce the volume of services utilized, that should increase my profit. So I am going to go with D as the only true answer. And it looks like almost everyone else had that. I'm looking in the chat, got some A's, got some B's, but most people got D's. So yeah, and Eric points out B would be correct for the health plan, but correct for provider network. Well, either way, if the health plan is paying the capitation rate to the provider, that's correct. Then lowering the rates would mean you're paying less out and you don't really care about their utilization. But this is back to reading the question really carefully and saying, okay, we're not looking at the health plan, we're looking at the provider service network. And that's where you got to really make sure that you're focusing on the question. Don't read them quickly, read them carefully. There's always a tendency to want to rush, but you have plenty of time to take this test. You got, I think it's 6 hours, and most people take between 2 and 3. So slow yourself down. Don't let yourself rush and read the questions carefully. And D is the correct answer.
Nice.
Your turn, Twee.
Which of the following is true about a capitated managed care organization or MCO arrangement? The provider shifts financial risk to the MCO. The provider can bill separately for each service provided. They must wait to bill the MCO until services have been provided to a patient. And the provider is paid a set fee. And so just looking back at these questions, and I may need more of Rick to walk with me through his brain walk on this one. I'm seeing responses. I'm not sure if this is from the last question or for this question, but it looks like people are answering D so far.
Yeah, and again, you have to know a little bit about finance along with healthcare, but if you know what capitation means, it means that the plan is shifting the financial risk to the provider. So A is wrong. That's false. Mm-hmm. The provider can bill separately, but no one's going to pay them because they're getting paid capitation. So B is false. Provider must wait to bill until service is provided. No, capitation per member per month. You get the check regardless of services. So C is false. So even without looking at D, I know it has to be right because I've got the 3 false ones. And yeah, definition and capitation. The provider's paid a set fee. So that's the only true one. And therefore, I'm going to go with D. And it looks like everyone else did too.
So related to this question, since this question is, for some of you, probably this is an easy question. Just a reminder that don't forget to, even though the answer is really obvious, don't forget to go through all the selections, because there are some nuances and some distractors there that might be the best answer. So just a quick reminder for everyone when you're taking the exam. We will be giving you some tips next week on how to take the exams on a one slide, so that it will help you. Thank you.
Right, so this next one asks, which of the following is not one of the reasons that HMOs and PPOs have lost traction in cost containment in recent years? Is it because new technology and pharmaceutical products have affected the amount and types of services being demanded? Increased payments as a result of physician and hospitals' ability to consolidate and mobilize negotiation leverage? Consumer and provider dissatisfaction, forcing government intervention in managed care, or the Affordable Care Act, or ACA, has banned PPOs and HMOs. Some of these questions can be rather lengthy, so as Rick was saying, it's good to break down and take it term by term if you are familiar with these. And so, Rick, I will pass it off to you for further explanation.
Oh, thanks. I hate this question, I decided. So new technology and products have certainly increased the amount you're paying out and has somewhat changed types of services, but switching from one to the other. But I'm not sure that is why. I'm not sure if that's hitting HMOs and PPOs specifically, so I'm going to put that as a maybe for now. I'm going to hold. Increased payments as a result of physician hospital ability to consolidate. Yeah, so as we've seen hospital consolidation, we know that they're more monopolistic. That is, they're a single buyer in a market, means they have more power. So that's a maybe. Consumer and provider dissatisfaction, we certainly saw that early on with like any willing provider and other rules that were passed that took away MCO's chance of limiting costs. But that, yeah, maybe. Okay, I'm going to put that one to maybe too. D is definitely wrong. Okay, we absolutely know ACA did not ban them. So I've got it down to 3. But I think all 3 of these are possibilities. And I'm not really sure which one is going to be right. Again, remember, you don't have to get 100%. So at some point, maybe you're just going to start guessing. But, oh, wait a minute. Oh, God, I read the question wrong.
I was just going to say that. It's one of the following is not one of the reasons. So it is D.
You got to read it carefully. So yeah, so A, B, and C are potentially right. D is the one that's not a reason. Boy, I would have blown that from not seeing the word not. Okay, read the question carefully. So yeah, the answer is going to be D. That's the only one that's not a reason.
D stands for ding, ding, ding. That's right.
You got to read the questions. And one thing that people suggested is read it backwards. So years recent in containment, cost in traction, to make sure that you're catching words like not.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you got plenty of time, so don't rush.
Right.
Just we have I remember a few other ones, and we'll probably bring it up in one of the upcoming slides, but there's another one called all except one, is another such phrase that kind of throw you out. I mean, if you don't kind of read it properly or pay attention, you'll be kind of going in the wrong direction as well. So
next one, please. All right, so how is ambulatory care delivered? Through medical staff membership, patient preferences, or C, in community-based settings, ranging from home to physician offices to clinical-based settings or in outpatient or emergency departments of hospitals, or D, in community-based settings ranging from home to acute care facilities to clinical-based settings or inpatient or emergency departments of hospitals. So if I were to answer this one, I would definitely break down the more robust responses, because there are differences in all of especially C and D. A and B are pretty straightforward, and especially with this type of question, it is more of like definition based. And so knowing what ambulatory care is and how it's delivered, it would be usually set in a doctor's office or some type of outpatient setting. So just like looking backwards and rereading that between D and C, I would choose C, because with acute care facilities and knowing like the body of knowledge of healthcare and what type of service that is and what the inpatient is, I would not choose that one. And it looks like the group also agrees that it's C.
I had to also break down C and D, the two lists, because they're both pretty long lists, to see where they started varying. And where they started varying was inpatient department. Well, if you know what ambulatory care is, it's not going to be inpatient. So you ambulate in, you ambulate out. And so that's how I could get rid of D.
I would probably also eliminate the first two by, if the medical staff membership is mostly in the inpatient setting, right? Or they have this medical staff department. You have to be a member of the staff of the medical staff to give care. So I'll eliminate that. Then B is patient preferences. I would eliminate it because this patient preferences is applicable both to ambulatory and inpatient, right? So those two already are removed to me. Then I'll just concentrate on C and D.
Yeah,
And
and I love the chats with that.
Someone points out inpatient is not part of ambulatory care, and if you know the definitions of those,
That's correct.
then you can say that one's not going to work. So, yep, D is not correct. C is correct.
Awesome. Next, please. All right, so the costs of graduate medical education, GME, are of concern to government policymakers because A, the number of residencies and residents are not centrally controlled. The number of medical student graduates exceeds the number of residency positions. C, managed care organizations are relatively uninvolved in the payment of GME. Or D, many residency positions are filled by foreign medical graduates. Let's take a little moment. And I think, Rick, I'll pass it off to you for this brain walk here.
Well, again, I'm going to go through and try to eliminate. And I know that, yeah, the number of residencies and residents is not centrally controlled, so that's a possible. Number of medical school graduates does exceed number of residencies, but is that a concern to policymakers? Not in terms of cost, it's just the cost of GME. If we wanted to say access, maybe, but we can eliminate that one. If there's anyone here from Kaiser, you can tell us how much you do graduate medical education. The answer is a lot, so managed care is definitely involved. We can get rid of C. And again, the residency positions, I'm not sure that's a cost issue. So I can pretty much eliminate B, C, and D. And I'm going to go back to A, which I put as a maybe, and I'm going to stay with it. So A will be right. And it looks like the ones being submitted were kind of all over, weren't they?
Yeah, I do like the rationale in the chat where the options C, A, B, or B, D, B, C, D aren't directly addressed to the concerns of the government policy about the costs, and so therefore process of elimination A is the most correct in this one. It is the correct one. So.
And again, it's back to read the question really carefully. If you just jumped into graduate medical education and you weren't paying attention to the cost of, then you would not find the answer as easily. So you got to read the question.
We have also Dr. Apalara said that think of ACGME for A to nullify it. So would you further explain to us that, doctor, if you don't mind?
Yeah, because, good morning, Dr. Apalara. Yeah. Because when you think about the role of ACGME, Accreditation Council for Graduate Medical Education, and you know what the functions are, they're actually involved in setting the numbers of positions and approving the residency program. And so I think that's more of a factor as far as I'm concerned than BCD. So if I'm going for this, I'm going to answer this exam, that would be my options. And I think people can go back and check the role and functions of ACGME.
Great. Okay. Thank
I
you.
can see that argument, but the Accreditation Council is not part of government. So if you're talking about government policymakers, they're not able to control it.
Yeah, I agree they are not part of
maybe.
government, but their activity is not without, it's not that it can be questioned by, let's say, the Congress, for instance, if there are issues with this. So, and that's my own perspective on that.
Yeah, no, I could see that. And, you know, sometimes you can drive yourself crazy because there's no perfect answer. And
yeah,
every once in a while you just have to say, okay, well, which one seems the most right?
Yeah. Great discussion. Thank you.
Number 6.
Which of the following is a unit of measure commonly used to determine physicians' clinical productivity? A, RVUs, B, CMS, C, IPA, or D, CPU? And so for this one, it's pretty straightforward, and some of the questions may be more straightforward and like definition defined or like definition based. And so if you know the acronyms for all of these, I would say and agree that A, RVU, the relative value units, is what would determine their clinical productivity, the like value-based care. CMS is the Center of Medicare and Medicaid Services, so that won't be accurate. CIPA, whenever I see this, and please correct me, anyone, if there is a term that exists, but I think of like, is this beer? I don't know.
Independent Physicians
Independent
Association.
Practice Association.
Okay, I was like, yeah, thank you, Sachin.
Yeah, because the beer definitely doesn't increase your productivity.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Definitely, it's the opposite. And and D, CPU. Aside from the computer processing unit, I don't know if there's anything else that's related. So,
but
yes.
I mean, in addition to knowing terminology, knowing the TLA 3-letter acronyms, we all tend to speak in TLA in healthcare, but reviewing them is also a good idea, just to make sure you're comfortable with what they are.
Or we could remotely tie in CPUs. If the physician is given like a 15-year-old CPU-based machine, and they're not able to open their EMRs to document and bill, the productivity suffers, right?
Right, but is it a unit of measurement of their productivity?
That's a good point. Yes.
Back to reading the question.
We'll talk more about health IT in the coming sessions. Thank you. So A, good job, everyone. All right, so next question. What population demographic factor is currently having the greatest impact on healthcare organizations? A, ethnic composition, B, insurance coverage, C, geographic distribution, or D, age cohort?
And in reading this question, one word I want to focus on is greatest, right? Because when you see that at the beginning, you know that all 4 of them potentially have some impact. Right, so you're making a judgment of which one is the greatest impact. And, insurance coverage, if you'd asked that 11 years ago, maybe, next week with changing Medicaid, maybe. At the composition, I think is not having the greatest, it's certainly having one, and we have more awareness of some of the issues than we did a few years ago. Geographic distribution seems false to me. But age definitely, if I was judging which of them, A, B, and D both all sound reasonable, but I would say D is the most impact, the greatest impact. And having moved on to Medicare, I'm part of it, so.
And there's a comment in the chat that says, yeah, D, older population have higher healthcare needs. So certainly that covers under the greatest impact. Yeah.
Yeah, because as Rick said, the greatest, because sometimes the geographic distribution also impacts the healthcare organizations, right? So this is the best, actually. Thanks for that note, Rick. The greatest, or probably questions you can see the best
Yeah,
or something like that. So
absolutely. All right. We'll definitely have to have a little brain stroll here after this. So the public reporting of outcomes information has become a high priority for healthcare payer because measurements of performance have now become well established, standardized, and accepted by all parties. B, purchasers are pressuring for disclosure of meaningful performance information for use by buyers and consumers. C, consumers in healthcare are now well organized and managed care organizations feel a need to satisfy them. Or D, physicians are increasingly encouraging their patients to evaluate insurance plans based on publicly reported data.
Okay, so I'm reading this and I'm saying, okay, high priority for the healthcare payer, right? So I can eliminate consumers, I can eliminate providers as far as the priority. Measurements of performance have become well established. Yeah, no, not yet. That one's false. Purchasers are pressuring for disclosure of performance. Yes, that is true, as the Leapfrog group. Consumers are now well organized, not in this lifetime. Physicians are encouraging their patients to evaluate. Oh yeah, right, sure they are. So I can eliminate A, C, and D as just being flat out false, and therefore B is going to be the correct answer. And I'm going to go with B.
So these are the type of questions that are lengthy sometimes. So as a tip is go through it, read through it, and in order not to to make mistakes. So
yeah, and don't rush. Just don't rush. You've got plenty of time.
Yeah.
It's hard to feel that way when you're taking the test, but you really have plenty of time.
Yeah, just another note, the exam does have an option to mark a question to come back and revisit. There are situations where options like these are more descriptive and you might need a little more time to read through it. That's fine. You can always come back. Just remember that we have an option there.
Yeah, some people like to get the low-hanging fruit. They go through and they get the easy ones, and then they go back to
the difficult ones,
the harder ones. Someone's asking how many seconds do we have per question? You've got 6 hours to 230 questions, so it's plenty of time. It just really is. You should not feel rushed or get past the psychological feeling of I have to jump right in. Slow yourself down. Yeah, you can select an answer and go back and change it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think,
and you have plenty of time to go review them.
Right, right. And if Nora was here, she would also point out, like, you can read these questions as true or false, or false, such as when Rick was breaking down each of the questions, he's like, nope, not C, definitely not, because it's not true. So everything else is false, but B is true, and everyone in our chat agrees that it is B. So good work, everyone. All right, so the health savings accounts were established through which law? Is it A, Consolidated Omnibus Budget Reconciliation Act, B, Medicare Prescription Drug Improvement and Modernization Act, C, Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, or D, Americans with Disabilities Act?
Well, I can quickly eliminate C and D. I just know those are wrong.
Mhm.
And you can try to memorize all the laws, but some of them are more obvious than others. And I suspect that if I was taking the test, I would flip a coin in my head between A and B. B is more recent than A. So, boy, I don't know. I think probably B is where I'd go, but I honestly don't know. It's A or B, one of those two.
Looks like survey saying it as B.
It is B, okay.
Yeah, nice.
Again,
So,
remember, you don't have to have 100%. And if you can eliminate two of them, then that improves your guessing for the ones you don't know.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you mentioned about loss rate, because just want to remind everyone also that the laws and regulations applies only to federal. So if there's some state law doesn't apply to the questions or to the exam. So most of the
Yeah,
laws
right.
and regulations are federally asked questions.
Yeah, A is COBRA, which is also, well, it is COBRA, but that included the EMTALA law, but it included some other things. And there's been multiple COBRA laws over the years with the same name, just different years on them. So sometimes you have to think about which one you're looking at. But again, you're not going to know everything. Eliminate as much as you can and flip a coin.
Yeah, I've noticed that some laws, like in these 4 examples, the description or what it says may not necessarily indicate the answer. Like the ADA, the Disabilities Act, obviously is clear, but I've known there are certain things within HIPAA or even the option A. It's you'll be surprised that there's certain things in there that are so encompassing that it's hard to see just by the name. Or if you have to guess, it's going to be hard.
All right, so the demand for nursing care is a function of 2 elements. All right, so A, the number of patients and the physicians on staff. B, the number of patients and how sick they are. Excuse me. C, the number of physicians on staff and their specialties. Or D, the number of PHO and HMO contracts.
So this one, I'm not sure why this is healthcare. It's a good management question, but number of patients, that makes sense for many nurses, but number of physicians on staff, I'm not sure how that would drive nursing demand. Number of patients, how sick they are, yeah, quantity and acuity, that seems true. Number of physicians and their specialties, not really. I mean, surgeons versus, IMED maybe, but not in a great way. Number of contracts, no, that one's going to be false. So I can eliminate A, C, and D as being false. So that leaves me with B, which sounded true, and I eliminated the others. So I feel good with B.
Yeah. Also, another reason is sicker patient need. Yeah, they need more nursing hours.
Yeah,
And
the
that's
number of patients and the acuity would be the drivers.
higher acuity, higher nursing demands.
For sure. All right. We'll move on to the
I
next.
think just a quick comment. I do know with COVID, it just the demand for the nurses became exponential. It's more because of the shortage, but that's a one-off situation, I guess.
We hope.
All right. So, what is the order of the healthcare continuum? Is it a long-term, acute, palliative, primary, Or is it B, pediatric medical surgical acute? Or C, primary acute long-term palliative? Or D, acute surgical palliative long-term?
Okay, so I hate these questions, the ones with the list, and every time I see one, I want to scream. But again, if you go through kind of a true false, you can eliminate them. So long-term is certainly not going to be the starting point of a continuum. So A is false. Pediatric medical surgical are really not part of the continuum because you have pediatric at all levels, medical surgical at all levels. So yeah, I'm going to eliminate B. C looks like the one that's most likely. I'm going to hold on that. And then acute, starting with acute, then surgical. Again, surgical's not part of the continuum specifically. And palliative would always come at the end because that's before you get transferred to the eternal care unit. So I'm going to eliminate A, B, and D, and I'm going to stick with C.
I agree.
One of the good things about taking the test at the test center versus at home is you don't have a cat sitting and screaming at you and walking on your keyboard.
Mhm.
Go away.
All right, so your board of trustees has voted to terminate the privileges of a physician. Which of the following organizations must you inform? Is it A, the American Medical Association, B, local medical society, C, National Practitioner Data Bank, or D, the Joint Commission?
So the word that I'm going to focus on here is must. Which of the organizations must you inform? So I'm thinking, okay, must means there's some kind of law or regulation, and therefore I'm going to focus in on government more than anyone else. AMA is not a regulatory agency. The local medical society is not. The Joint Practitioner Database certainly is. Joint Commission is not. So even if I didn't know about the Healthcare Quality Act requiring you to support or to inform the data bank, I can eliminate the others just by reasoning it through on thinking about what does the word must mean. And the only place it shows up in regulation is going to be C.
And survey says C.
Right. Which Medicare plan allows the enrollees to participate in private health plans? A, Part A, B, Part C, Part D, Part B.
Man,
I know, I made a really interesting scramble.
Yeah, couldn't they have just done that in the right order? Okay, so this is again one of those things you got to know. So Part A is inpatient care, hospital care. Part D is D for drugs. B is optional care for physicians and ancillary services. So again, I can eliminate those. C is Medicare Advantage.
Mhm.
So the answer is going to be B. The answer is B for Part C. And some people were putting C, and I'm not sure if they meant Part C or answer C.
That's fair.
DC is just want to remember, just D for drugs.
Awesome.
Okay. Nice. So those are only the questions for the, do we have additional supplemental questions, or we can open the chat room for any questions that so far that you have any question that came up as you see or experience the Q&A with us? Okay.
Michael, let me just throw out a comment here, which is that none of us are experts in all 10 areas. And most of us, depending on what we do day to day, are more comfortable with some things than others, whether it's finance or HR or whatever. So you're not going to be an expert in all of them, but knowing which ones you do well on and which ones you don't leads you to where you want to concentrate your studying. But it also means that you're going to balance yourself out when you do it. So I just assume I'm going to do really badly on quality and finance because I don't ever think about those things. I'm going to do better on law and ethics because I teach those. Each of us has our own strengths. So you got to look at where your strengths are, and the others just recognize you may not feel as comfortable with your question when you answer it.
Yeah, so I'll just answer some of the questions on the chat. So there's a question says, how many seconds do we have per question? So it really depends. So 220 questions for 6 hours. So divide by that. So calculate that. So if for easy questions, probably you don't even need a minute for that. So it really depends, right?
Yeah, someone actually broke down. Thank you, Terrence. They said 1.6 minutes per question.
Yeah. So, but you won't probably spend 30 seconds for one of the questions that are easy. So, another question is, when will you share the recording and how long can we access them for? Shashan, you wanna or Shashan or Tui, will you wanna answer this one? So we're gonna be sending the recording next week.
Yeah,
right?
so I try to send this out by Monday or Tuesday.
Okay, and you can access them.
So
Right.
our video recordings are going to be on YouTube on our channel. There's a CAHL channel on there. So we have a playlist of all of our recordings.
Okay.
Yeah, and that includes last seasons as well. So some of those questions are different from this session.
Yeah. Does this face-to-face credit? This is a qualified education. So we are offering 8 qualified education for every Saturdays. So it does not go towards your face-to-face. So can you confirm there's a practice exam we can take? How do we access? Rick? This is a common question, actually.
Yeah, the ACHE has some practice questions online, but not as many as they used to. They don't like sharing it, apparently. But there are also some that you can find just from Googling it. Recognize that you got to be careful on the source of whether you believe it or not. I took the exam many years ago, right after I had taken this California bar exam. And for the bar exam, I did literally thousands of practice multiple choice questions. Therefore, I was really frustrated when I got to take the BOG, just because I couldn't find practice questions as easily. So I wish there were more available. There aren't. But you start with what's on the ACHE website is what I recommend. And we will also be sending some out, I think.
Yeah, so the credits are self-reported. If you can go to your My ACHE and report it there, so it's self-reported. One of the questions there. And another question is, once you submit your application to ACHE, how long will it take? Anyone who has experience recently on the application here, Shashan? How long did it take for you for the ACHE to apply to respond?
I think it took around 3 weeks or so before I heard back from them approved. Sometimes there might be a back and forth between ACHE and the applicant in case of questions they may have before they approve. I've received a call or an email exchange about a fellow that I did a structured interview for, and they had a couple of questions about the application. So that kind of added a little more delay, but I would say 3 to 4 weeks is reasonable.
Okay, there's quite a few questions out there. Maybe if we are not able to answer all your questions, for sure we will send some answers in the next few weeks. We need to research some of the answers on those questions, right?
Yeah, boy, I'm looking at their website now, and they really are getting really hard to find the practice questions that they used to have.
So
I
this
Googled up that question, Rick, and I'm gonna see if there's a reference manual that came up, so I'm not sure if this is like the right version that.
just a reminder, those are old, and ECHE does not really recommend those to be used. But you can use it, but it's not a guarantee that it will help you.
Just so you know,
I've seen-
ACHE as a board, as a committee, exam committee that actually actively prepares new questions for every exam. And part of the reason why we have the additional 30 questions is they are basically trying them out in terms of complexity and how students answer them. So the questions that you may see in Quizlet online are just samples, obviously relevant to the material you have, but do not assume that. I have one of the members of a few months ago came to me and said, I have looked up and downloaded all the questions and I only have 1 month. Is that enough for me to prepare? So those questions, as I said, they're all samples. You still want to spend enough time having, ideally that study set, because those books, especially the first book, the Well-Managed Healthcare Organization, is a great book that's kind of covers pretty much all the 10 areas. But I would suggest to cover the topics at some level of detail in using all those books, not just rely on questions available online.
So quick question here. We have 6 minutes more left. So what strategies do you recommend for effectively using flashcards to prepare for the exam? First question. The flashcards are just knowledge based and a fact on facts. So is it that's my question answer to that. Is it sufficient to simply understand the concept on the cards, or should I strive to memorize the exact wording? No, don't memorize the exact wording. You have to understand the whole questions. So Rick or everyone from the board or from the group, you could probably add more to this answer to this question. So
I'm sorry, I was looking at the other thing. I missed the questions. Apologize.
Are the answer option and MCQ in exam generally similar to one another, or is it clear which option is the best?
No, it's not all of them are clear. Some of them are just really obvious. You just know the right answer. And other times you do have to make a judgment. Either, what is the greatest, or sometimes, like you saw with one of the ones we did today, you can eliminate two, but you just don't know the answer between two. So I wish they were all obvious, but sometimes there is not obviously one correct answer. There's two that look really good, and you have to make a judgment of which one is more correct.
So what is the best indicator that I am ready for the exam? We really don't know. Right? So as I talked to some of the people who have passed the exam, some of them said they took the exam first and they failed, and they learned from that. Then the second time they passed. So it's just probably a trial and error for me. But indicator of if you are prepared, it just depends on you, right?
I'm going to go back to earlier question. Tweet put up the link to the Board of Governors exam reference manual, which is good because I can't find it on their website. And this is probably a really good starting point on some questions, because it not only shows you some of the questions, but it also walks you through what's the correct answer. So on some of them. So if you take a look at that link that you put up, I would definitely look at this.
Okay.
But I wish there were hundreds more questions to practice from.
Yeah, I think the questions are change every 2 years, every 2 year cycle. So yeah, there's a committee at the AHE that are revising and reviewing this question, or changing them every 2 years.
And after this event, everyone, thank you all so much for your questions. They're really good. I'm going to do a little bit of research, and in the post session email, like for the materials, I'll do my best to include these references and other resources to best answer your inquiries.
Okay, so I think if there are no more questions, we are ready to adjourn, and I would like to thank everyone for your participation today, and we hope we are helping you to your journey to fellow, and we would like to see you again on Saturday. We will be doing the finance, healthcare finance, and human resources aspect on Saturday. So thank you very much for joining us today, and we will see you next time on Saturday.
Thank
See
you,
you.
everyone.
Everyone, have a great weekend.
You too.